All right, back again for another deep dive. And this week, we've got ourselves a pretty exciting Premier League matchup. Fulham taking on Manchester United over at Craven Cottage. It's the Cottagers, exceeding expectations, sitting pretty in the top half of that table. They're going up against the Red Devils, a side that's, well, having a little bit of an identity crisis, I'd say, under their new manager.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me here is that despite that gap in the table, Fulham's actually a full 7 points ahead. You really can't write off Manchester United. You just can't. This fixture has a history of, well, throwing up some pretty unexpected results.
Yeah, for sure. And that makes this deep dive all the more interesting. We know that Fulham are on a decent run, only one loss in their last 11 games. That's across all competitions. Now the question is, what's fueling this success? Is it just a fluke? Or is there something more sustainable, something we can see continuing?
Well, let's dig into that. If we take a closer look, we see a Fulham side that's really become incredibly efficient. They're creating these high-quality chances and converting them. Their expected goals, or XG, is actually higher than some of the teams that are above them in the table, which suggests that their attacking output isn't just luck.
Okay, so there's some real substance behind their form, and they are coming off a pretty solid 2-1 win against Leicester, which definitely won't hurt their confidence. But then we look at their home record, and we see 4 draws in a row. So is that a mental block or something else at play there?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? They're not exactly what you'd call a defensive wall at Craven Cottage, so it's not like they're grinding out those draws. It seems more like they're struggling to convert all those chances they create into wins, decisive wins, especially against the bigger clubs.
Which leads us quite nicely to Manchester United. It's been a tough season for them, no doubt about it. A 3-1 loss to Brighton, and that's their 10th loss already this season, which puts them closer to the relegation zone than the top 7. That's got to be hard to swallow for a club of their stature.
Absolutely. I mean, they're clearly still adapting to Ruben Amorim's style of play. It's possession-based, yes, but it lacks that cutting edge that they had under previous managers. And that Brighton game really exposed their defensive frailties. They were just carved open far too easily.
They did manage a late win against Rangers in the Europa League, though, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's a sign that things are starting to click.
It's possible. Bruno Fernandes, who is now wearing that captain's armband, he really stepped up in that match. And it seems like his leadership and creativity are vital for them right now. But, one good performance doesn't erase a whole season's worth of inconsistencies.
No, it doesn't. Fair point. Now, to really understand this matchup, we have to look at the head-to-head history. And, well, let's be honest, it's not exactly pretty reading for Fulham fans.
Oh, no, not at all. Manchester United have really dominated this fixture, especially at Craven Cottage. We're talking about a 7-game win streak away from home. Fulham haven't actually beaten them on their home turf since 2009.
2009. Wow, that does feel like a lifetime ago. You wouldn't happen to remember the scoreline from that match, would you?
It was a 3-0 demolition. Goals from Damien Duff, Bobby Zamora, and Danny Murphy. Definitely a day to forget for Manchester United.
So history definitely favors the Red Devils. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's see if the team news and potential lineups give us any clues about how this might all unfold.
Sounds good to me. So starting with Fulham, they've got a couple of injury concerns. Kenny Tet and Rice Nelson, they're both sidelined, which weakens their attacking options. But the real dilemma for Marco Silva is Sasa Lukic.
Yeah, yes. Their key midfielder. He's 1 yellow card away from suspension. It's a little risky playing him in this match, knowing he could miss some crucial games later on.
Oh, it's a tough call. And then they'll also be thinking about whether to start Adama Traore, who's been on fire lately ahead of Alex Iwobi. His direct running and pace could really cause Manchester United some problems.
Okay, so some interesting decisions for Fulham's manager. What's their potential starting lineup looking like?
Well, I'd say Leno in goal, Castan, Anderson, Bassi, and Robinson forming the back 4, Burge, and if they risk him, Lukic in midfield, then Wilson, Smith-Rowe, and potentially Traore as that attacking trio behind Gimenez up front.
Solid, but you can see where those missing players might be felt. Now, what about Manchester United's injury woes? Their defense has been a bit of a revolving door this season.
It really has, and it doesn't get any easier for them. Matthijs de Ligt and Lenny Yoro are both doubts after picking up knocks in the Europa League.
Not ideal when you're already facing a Fulham side that loves to attack. That puts even more pressure on Andre Onana in goal. And he's already had his fair share of criticism.
He has. But, you have to remember that he's still settling into a new team and a new league. It's tough. He's likely to start, though, despite the scrutiny. On top of the defensive concerns, they're also without Mason Mount, Johnny Evans, and Luke Shaw. However, there is a chance that Victor Lindelof could make a return.
Okay, so some potential reinforcements, but still plenty of absentees. What's your best guess at their starting 11?
I'd say Onana in goal, a makeshift back three of Mazraoui, Maguire, and Martinez. Diallo, Ugarte, Mainu, and Dullet providing the width and energy in midfield. And then Fernandez, Garnacho, and Hojlund leading the attack.
So we've got a pretty good sense of both teams' form, the historical context, and the potential lineups. But to really make this a true deep dive, we need to look beyond the obvious and delve into those key stats and betting insights that just might give us an edge.
You're absolutely right. Numbers can tell us so much. First up, and this is something that's impossible to ignore, Fulham have scored 2 goals in each of their last 5 Premier League matches. That's consistency that can't be underestimated.
2 goals a game. That's impressive stuff, especially considering all those draws they've been racking up.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what their attack could do against this weakened Manchester United defense.
Exactly. But then you look at the other side of the coin, and Manchester United have won their last 7 away games against Fulham. History has a way of repeating itself in football.
True, but then you throw in the fact that Fulham's last 4 home league matches have all been draws. It's almost like they're programmed to share the points at Craven Cottage.
It is a curious trend, and to round things off, we can't ignore that rather alarming statistic. Manchester United has the most league defeats this season, 10, among the traditional top 6 clubs.
10 defeats, yeah.
Yeah.
That really puts their struggles into perspective. Okay, so we got Fulham's goal-scoring prowess, Manchester United's historical dominance at Craven Cottage, Fulham's tendency to draw at home, and Manchester United's unusually high number of losses. It's a real mixed bag.
It really is. So the big question is, will Fulham's home draw trend continue? Or can Manchester United break their losing streak at Craven Cottage? It's tough to call.